My god, has this been a journey? I started recording this video in the morning and it's currently 5 p.m. and I'm still not done with it, but we're gonna give it a rest because it's beginners unluck, I guess, beginners problems. So, welcome to my channel. If this is a family or a friend or someone who knows me who's watching this, hi. You know my name is Asmita, and if this is someone who does not know me, you still don't get to call me something else. My name is still Asmita, except you can call me a roller coaster because I'm on a high. And yes, you can expect this kind of quality joke content here. You're welcome. So here it is. This is my first ever video, and also kind of like the first installment of Books with Asmita, or the books Asmita reads and then rants about it video. I read 4 books this month. And that is a lot. That is a lot, considering that I had just read 2 books in the last 2 years. But then that was when I was in college, and college was a weird time for everybody. I mean, I loved college, but man, oh man, was that weird. So the first book I read this month is called Circe, and it's by Madeline Miller. So I read it on my Kindle that I keep in this hide sign purse box, and I'm just gonna open it for reference. It's so hard to open it with one hand. Okay, so let me show you it. This is the book Cersei by Madeline Miller. I read this on an ebook, and I read this because I came across BookTube and everybody was raving about this book. So here's my 2 cents about it. I think that the author, Madeline Miller, has done a beautiful, amazing job writing this book. This book is very picturesque, and she has gotten into a lot of details, and she's really, really worked on the original source material. And there's a lot of Greek mythology facts here, which is like really well researched. But what I think is this: the journey of Cersei is beautiful. She comes from like being a child who's not very recognized, right? No one really loves her. Everyone like looks down upon her. To then going on an exile. Being sent on an exile to the island of Ayaya, and then how she, embraces her ability to be a witch, and she starts doing all of these spells and everything, which is really nice and empowering. But also what I think is it could have been better. I'm sorry. Like, I think everyone has given this 5 stars, and on the first read I thought it was 4 stars, I think. But I think there were too many cameos in this book. So there was Odysseus, there was Daedalus, Icarus, and Apollo, Zeus. I'm sorry if I'm butchering any of these names, but there were just too many mortals and gods in this book, and it just made it feel like, okay, so she is kind of like a side character in her own story, which should not be the case. Second of all, I think she was too dependent on men for her happiness. So anywhere you see, if she's unhappy, it's because of man. If she's happy, it's because of man. If she's bonding with someone, it's man. And I think there could have been some female person that she could have, bonded with. Apart from that, it is a very beautifully written book. You can picture the island, and you can picture everyone's face. It's very nice. And it's actually very refreshing to read all of those mythological stories intertwined in the story, but that also takes away from the story. So I don't know, it's like a lose-lose situation or win-win, whatever you can call it. I'm sorry for the noise. Okay, so the second book that I read is Family Upstairs. The Family Upstairs. It is written by Lisa Jewell. I read on my Kindle. Here it is, The Family Upstairs. It starts out with a young woman named Libby, and she has just inherited a big multi-million dollar mansion from her birth parents, and then she finds out that she was also adopted, and then there's this whole journey of her finding out who her birth parents were and what was the whole story connected to the house. And it's really, really well written. So I remember I started reading this book at 10 in the night, and then there was a power outage, and then I read this book till 2. And as soon as I woke up the next day, I was like, I have to finish this book. So you cannot put this book aside. It's that kind of a book, and it is told from like a multiple point of view. So there's three main people who are telling the story. There's Libby, there's Lucy, and there's Harry. Libby is trying to find out the story of the house, and Lucy and Harry have stayed in the house, so their stories and what happened in the house, and other people who've lived in the house, their stories. And there were a lot of creepy things that happened in the house, but also I think the creep factor was very little. I mean, it could have been more creepy, it could have been darker, but it kind of falters in that sense that it was not that dark. Now, there were few plot twists that were a little weird to me. I mean, you would be expecting something to happen, but then other thing happens, and then you're like, oh, what's happening? It's kind of confusing like that. But it's also very fast paced and entertaining, and I could not put it down. So you should read it. The third book that I read was Hide and Seek by James Patterson. Now, this book I got in a fair kind of a thing where you get 1 kilogram of books for 200 rupees. I don't know if someone is not understanding that. That's a very Indian concept. So this book I got, and I never read it for like 4 years. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have this lying around, and it's like the only physical copy of a book that I have not read yet. So I picked this up. This was written on the year when I was born. So that was kind of intriguing. And the synopsis is also very interesting. So Maggie Bradford is on trial for murder in the celebrity trial of the decade. As one of the world's best loved singer-songwriters, she seems to have it all. So how could she have murdered not just one, but two of her husbands? It's really, reels you in with the synopsis. And it is a good book. I'm not going to lie. It's a good thriller. If you want to read something that is, a good thriller, you can read this book. But I felt like the ending was kind of a drag. It kept dragging for a long time, and then you're like, okay, stop, and we get it over with, please. I mean, we get it, we get the point, please. And also the weird thing that happened was, after I read this book, I researched about it, and I found out that the two main protagonists in this book, at least two, which is Maggie Bradford and Will Shepherd, are real people. He was a real life football star, and she was a real life singer. And what is this? Is this like a fiction? Is this non-fiction? Is this fiction written on real people? So that is kind of conflicting with me. So that is why I gave it like 3-star rating. It's a good book, but then it's like, did you really write about real people? And the way they've written it, like the character of Will Shepherd is kind of an asshole. I'm sorry, but okay, it's okay. All right. It's not like I'm a writer or like a well-known reviewer or a critic. I'm just reading these books for fun. But it's just, for me, it was a 3-star rating for this book. So the last book that I read was Misery by Stephen King, and it's my favorite book. I'm very biased about it, and this book is an experience. I mean, I've never read anything written by Stephen King before, so I was not sure what to expect. But man, oh man, was my mind blown. So this book follows the story of two characters. The first one is Annie Wilkes, and the author Paul Sheldon. So Paul Sheldon is like a very renowned author. He has written a lot of books, but he came into fame by writing misery novels, which follows the story of Misery Chastain, which is a character. And so how he gets abducted. I'm not going to say abducted, but he's kind of like held hostage in Annie Wilkes' house, and how she kind of forces him to write the book again. Misery returns, although he does not want to do that. He wants to get out of the shadow of misery, but he's forced to do that, and how he's forced to do things for survival. So I loved this book so much that I also simultaneously watched the movie. So as the book was happening, the movie is also happening, and in that sense, the movie felt a little dull to me. I'm sorry. I mean, the performances were amazing. The movie was well made. But when you read this book, it feels like, oh, so a lot of this, there's so much detail in the book that's not in the movie. And that never happened to me. I've seen a lot of movie adaptation of books, and that did not happen to me. But in this book, in this case, it was like, oh, so no, but there was so much gruesome detail. Where is that detail? So that kind of passion I did not feel for a book for a very long time. So I love that. So again, I had this in like the ebook form. Here it is, and this is our little Annie Wilkes. And even I listened to the audiobook of this book, and it was on a website called Stephen King audiobooks.com. There's free audiobooks there, and the narrator has done such a beautiful job on this book. It was really, she made me even more interested in a book that I was already interested in. So that was a beautiful job she did. And yeah, these are the books that I read this month. That's it. If you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a comment down below. Please tell me what books you're reading, because this is a very nice place that I've found on the internet that you can talk about books. And honestly, I've never had such good recommendations in my life, so I would really like to see what other people are reading, and like read those books, or like any conversation you want to have, any critiques you have about the way I made this video. This is just the first time I'm making anything, so I'm very open to suggestions. I'm always open to suggestions. It's not like, oh, I'll get good at it and not be open to suggestions. No, I'll always appreciate any feedback there is. And I'll see you next time in, I'm hoping, some video, or maybe it will be another edition of books I've read. So I'll see you then. Thank you. It almost was over. Bye.